Welcome on in to the Bobby Carpenter Show here on this big Thursday. Like we are counting down the days till Christmas, and even more importantly, the college football playoff. And the Buckeyes will be playing in a week from Saturday. So we're juiced up to see that happen. A lot of news going on inside the college football world, Schlegel. And we'll start with this. Because it was swirling yesterday that arguably the greatest living coach in football, Bill Belichick, hadn't coached. I don't think he's ever coached in college. He got his start coaching the NFL in 1975 with the Colts. So that would be when they were in Baltimore. His father, I believe, coached at North Carolina. I know he coached at the Naval Academy for a long time. But Bill Belichick, it's apparently official now that he is going to be the head coach at the University of North Carolina. The Tar Heels, baby. North Carolina Schlegs, come on and raise up. Little Petey Pablo. You think
Petey Pablo, that's our guy. Honestly, he probably was part of that collective to bring Bill in.
Petey Pablo, which do you think is more likely? Bill Belichick wins a national championship at North Carolina, or Petey Pablo still has any money left?
That's a good question. I think Petey Pablo, you never know, man. He might have invested that stuff in Bitcoin for as all as we know, and he's just rolling. I'm going to say this. I would like to know how he came about to this decision, because his son is the defensive coordinator at Washington.
And is or was?
No, is.
Well,
he might not be anymore.
Was he coming? Does he come with Bill to North Carolina? I think that would be.
I would suspect that. I would suspect that. I would like to know, because they were talking about how just the headlines, right? He wants to make this more pro-esque. And I'm going to tell you guys this right now from being in the pros, is that from a nutrition and sports performance model, the college football game is ahead of the pro game. And you know that, Bob. You've seen
some places in the pros. There are places in the NFL. Like New England had the best. I played at 5, 6 different teams. They were head and shoulders far and away the best. And that's why you have Sean Barnhouse and Adam Stewart at Ohio State who came there from that New England model. Bill was all in on it. Now, the thing is, in the NFL, you have to get guys to believe it because they're pros, and a lot of guys do it on their own, and do their own stuff. So they've got to be on board.
What's the hardest thing about that, Bob, is the fact that they're not in the building. There's so many different rules and regulations in the NFL to where you can't train guys. Like, you have to be there. You can only spot guys from basically post, after this season to whenever you go to OTAs, and now that's even voluntary, right? So there's a lot of different things. He wants to bring that model to North Carolina. I would be more excited to see how he came to the conclusion of, and what he wants to do based on what I heard, is the development aspect of getting you NFL ready and basically making that the value proposition to come to a North Carolina over other places, because he's been there, done that, won Super Bowls. And so I'm interested to see the high school parent mindset into, is that what I want to do? Now, it also shows that North Carolina isn't just about basketball. They want to go all in and also be about football, because let's face it, that's where the money is. So I'm excited about the hire in Columbus, Ohio. There is the argument of who else would you get, right, in Columbus, Ohio? And then, boom, poof, David Copperfield, UNC goes out there and gets Bill Belichick. So interesting. I'm excited to have him in the college game. He's replacing another older coach. And I think the one thing that he's going to run into, Bob, and this is something I've been thinking about too lately, this portal deal really bothers me for a couple of reasons. One, you have two. That's terrible. The number two thing is,
listen, you said that you have two portals. Talked about that being terrible. Let's explain to the folks why you don't think that that's a good idea.
Well, I think there needs to be one. And here's the problem that we face with this early transfer portal. And I was thinking about this today, and we've been talking to coaches.
You say you think there needs to be one. Why is one better than
I'm going to it, Bob. I'm going to it. So we have this time where you have college, you have bowl games, but you have the college football playoff, and you have guys that are entering the portal. And yes, they might not play as much, but you have the Arizona State coach, hey, finish the journey with us. right? And then go to your school, because there's obviously, you have to get in school. Like, we still have to graduate guys. You still have to get a degree, and you have to go to school. The problem with that is, but now you just said you're going to do an NIL deal, or you're going to go somewhere else and play football. Well, in the NFL, you're contractually obligated, right? You start the season, you finish the season, and then you go into free agency. In college football, it's you play, and then you go into free agency while the season is still going on. Those are special team guys. What happens if that guy gets hurt? Now he can't go to another team. That's where I think the portal should literally be after the spring, because it coincides with, now I can get in and go into summer school. Like, that's the problem, because our season goes now into January. It'd be different if it stopped January 1, and then we could go into school and start fresh. And then the other thing with that is, the best time to build college teams is in the winter. So you have both those things going against it, and you don't have the roster management, and the guys that we got last year, the Caleb Downs of the world, the Seth McLaughlins of the world, they're starting. They're not transferring out, going into the portal as they go make a run in the college football playoff. That would happen afterward. So now those teams that are in the CFP are at a disadvantage to potentially those higher end guys that they want to bring into their program. I just don't like it. I don't like it for the players, and I don't like it for the programs either.
Well, and like talking to some of the guys over at Ohio State, you start talking about, with the coaches, and we talked and we're joking about this yesterday with AJ, is, things change dramatically in the spring as far as like reps. So when you're beat down by the end of the season, maybe you've been hurt, maybe you haven't played as much, your situation wasn't what you thought it would be. And like, all those things are very fluid, and they can all change.
Yep.
And so putting it after the spring, I think would be much better. Now, herein lies the problem, is they moved this, and they moved college signing day, or the high school signing day, because they wanted to correspond with the window, so people knew who they could bring in, how many players they could bring in, what your roster is ultimately going to look like. And that's the juggling process. Because here's the issue that everybody still has, is there's still school, and you've got to go to school, and you got to go to class, or else, hey, you just wait until February 1st and do it. Well, I don't know if there's some process where, you can stay online and then transfer, and maybe you stay online and finish out the semester. I don't know how that'll all work, but the academic piece is still a large piece in this that they've got to get figured out, and they have to get structured. So that's what the big encumbrance is after the season, trying to juggle this. So I'm with you. When you see this and you say, hey, what's going on? Poof, let's just make it at the end of the season, end of spring ball. And everybody does their spring balls differently, Schleg. So like, open it up, I don't know, the last week in April, and then it goes through like the first week in May.
Because May is discretionary from training wise, right? So, and you can even do it to where, let's say somebody gets after the season and they want to enter the portal. The value proposition in college football is very different now, especially like as a strength coach. It should just be, my job is to maximize your value and extend your career, whether that's at Ohio State or you go on and go somewhere else. Because the guys that are entering the portal from Ohio State, I care about those guys. You want them to succeed. It just didn't work out for them at Ohio State. They put their time in, and now they're going to leave. There should be a period of, just like free agency in the league, Bob, right? Like, you are able to go in and work out in that facility for an X amount of time, right? And you have a responsibility as a coach to help those players, because it also bodes well to them when they leave, because guys talk. You know what I'm saying? And so if that's what you want to do, have it open up the portal after spring football. To your point, maybe that's May, right? And then boom, now you can go start your summer school classes at a new place. So now again, coaches wise, you lose spring football, which a lot of things happen, but at least you know where your roster is. And to your point, for those that want to leave, Bob, things change. Seniors leave, your rep count goes up. All of a sudden, boom, you flash, or maybe the genetic potential kicked in a little bit, or the football acumen now has increased and you're playing faster. Right now, there is an opportunity for you. All those things come into play. I just don't like the two. But again, that goes back to where I'm interested to see why Belichick took this on and his thought process around NIL, the portal, roster management, development. I'm excited to watch it play out, and I'm excited that he's in college football.
It'll be good. The question is, like, Shakes, can he sit on a couch? And I don't know how much of this is real anymore or not. When you and I were getting recruited, can Bill Belichick sit on a couch?
Oh my gosh!
And convince players, high school players, their parents, and all that stuff that this is the place for you? Because he's not going to give you the warm and fuzzies. That's the problem.
No, there's no war. I mean, like you have to be a salesman for your university. I mean, just throwing out the championship rings on the table and all the Hall of Famers.
Part of it. And
that's part of it. But like Bob, to your point, man, it's the relationship. It's the grind of recruiting. It's the flights to all these different places. It's what Braves said, right? I'm sitting there now. Belichick's not over there going to his kids' baseball games and then having to go open up UNC Stadium for a recruit. But you still got to be on call all the time.
Well, Bill, here's the thing, good news for Bill. Bill's going to be at the stadium anyway because Bill doesn't have anything else that he does. Like football is his hobby, his first, second, and third hobby. He has nothing else. And, I talked about this a little bit yesterday where, you coach for so long, you miss your window to retire. You're too old to really do anything else, and his kids are in it. So Steve is going to most likely be there with him. So you got your son there with you. It's like, well, what else am I going to be doing? Like going around Martha's Vineyard, hanging out. Maybe him and his 25-year-old go on, they're at North Carolina. Maybe they drive on down to Myrtle Beach, Schlegs, check out wings, get an octobong, go hang out on the beach and party a little bit. I mean, maybe, but like this is what he does. He doesn't have anything else going on, but just that recruiting element, that's what I'm going to find so unique because you need the Jimmies and the Joes. You need Jimmies and Joes. You need a lot of them. And at the end of his tenure in New England, they weren't nearly as good. So he's bringing in, I believe, Mike Lombardi to come in to be his GM. They're going to manage this thing like the salary cap. Now, Bill will be cutthroat. He'll be, as tough as he needs to be in building and constructing that roster. So I have faith in him to do that. But player retention, like that's the thing, Schlegel. Like, your guys have to like being there, especially if they're not playing at the level that they expected. And so can you sell them on, hey, I know this year wasn't as great. Stay around next year. That's what Brian Hartline's really good at is he comes in, these guys have plans where, okay, you're doing this. We're going to get you in. We're going to integrate you and build you. And if you're not here by this point, well, then it's probably time for you to go. And everybody's always on the same page and you can be brutally honest with them. But Hart is a guy that relates well to people. And maybe we'll be a head coach soon one day. I mean, and that's like the fear. I'd be happy for my friend. I'd be sad for Ohio State. And, we'll get into that in the next segment. But that's the thing I worry like with Bill. Roster management, dollars, yeah, that's all good. I think he'll handle that. He's got people that can do that. But you watch his last couple of years at New England, they struggled some when it came down to player acquisition in the draft and some of the guys they didn't hit on. And how he's going to handle that because it was not warm in New England. You played for Mangini. It was a similar. I'm guessing it was fairly similar to what you experienced with the Jets. Jets were probably worse because Mangini wanted to probably up it from Bill and make it even tougher. So I mean, you obviously had that, and so there's that element with it. And then the other piece is he said it's going to be a pipeline for guys that have the ability to go play in the NFL. Bill's teams were always super smart. And they had guys who cared a lot, who studied a lot, who you could give a lot of information to. Didn't have the best players, but that's why you had a lot of those mid-level vet guys who were smart, who had played, who could recognize things, and maybe weren't the flashiest athletes, but always knew where to be and how to get it done. That's the other piece that I worry about is like, Schlegs, me at 20, yeah, we used to watch film, we'd hang out and do whatever, and like cared a lot. But I cared a lot more when it was my job and it was my profession. Like you're just more invested and really, frankly, you're more mature.
Yes.
I mean, I was going out still on Thursday nights and crushing beers, and trying to, pick up my wife and stuff like that on Thursday nights. So like, will you be able to have guys who will put that aside and be all in? Like they've done a good job with that Ohio State, but it's not like that everywhere. And that's a hard sell to be able to get.
You hit the nail on the head there, Bob. I mean, you just look at guys that you and I personally know, the John Simons that had a long career, right? As an edge center, right? The Nate Ebners of the world. And when they were really good, what did they have? They had Tom Brady that raised everybody's level on the offensive side of the ball and why they were so good. And then they had their pieces on defense that were there for a long period of time. The cycle for sustainability in college football is significantly faster than it is when building a dynasty in a program in the NFL.
Let's call it a dynasty because it sounds cooler.
Dynasty. All right. But I mean, like, it just because you know who those cores are. The problem in college football is that core is gone. every 2 years if you get it for 2.
Exactly.
And that's the thing that's different about college and the league, besides the fact that the amount of time coaches are in the building, right? There is no off season. You're always on all the time, which is fine for him. But can the players sustain it? And how do you acquire that talent to be that core, to be able to do the things that you want to do? Now, I will say this, though.
Say it, baby.
From a scheme standpoint,
the best.
A clock management standpoint, the attacking weaknesses standpoint, there will be nobody better. So in regards to that, win. Roster management, how do I build that nucleus and sustain that year after year and develop and keep them in the building without having the NIL deals, the flash from other places? That's going to be the hardest thing. And you got to be on 24/7 to be able to do so.
All right, attention parents, athletes, protect what matters most with X-Sport mouthguards trusted by professional athletes and designed by NHL team dentists. X-Sport mouthguards are scientifically tested to absorb those high-impact hits, protecting both your teeth and your brain. X-Sport mouthguards feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including the patented use of carbon fiber. They 3D print that bad boy right to your grill for that snug fit, which means better protection, better performance, max comfort, clear communication, focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Visit exportguards.com/Bobby. Save 15% on your order. Export, protect what matters most. There's other coaches that we're interviewing, other coaches that were out there. Find out who those guys are. And will Bill Belichick be successful? And how do you define that success at North Carolina? Coming up next. I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like... I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer. All right, welcome back here in the program. And Schlegs, people say, will Bill Belichick be successful? And I always say, what is the question? He said when he was talking, I have no doubt will consistently compete for ACC championships. How many years do you think that he's there? And then is he successful? And within that, what do you define success? Or how do you define it?
Success for him would be winning an ACC championship. I mean, I don't think North Carolina has won one since the 80s. Dabo has had all the success in the ACC. So I would say winning an ACC championship and going to a CFP and winning an ACC championship would be success for North Carolina, in my opinion.
That's true.
How long would he be there? That's a great question. How old is he? I think he's 72, right?
72, 73, yeah, right in there.
All right. Max 5.
5. That's kind of it. So part of it, the people have rumored with this is, number one, what he needed. He said there was a hang-ups, like they wanted to have NIL. Like he's making $10 million a year. That's cool. They need the $20 million a year. They need the big NIL budget. They said they have budgets to buy out coaches, have his staff, but he needs to have the NIL to get players. You can get players. I think with Bill Belichick, you can compete for an ACC championship. I don't know, Schlegs, that there'll ever be a true national championship contender, but I think you can look at this and say, hey, there's a good chance that they will be able to win an ACC or get there and maybe be like a Clemson this year where like they're in it, but maybe they win a game. No one's expecting them to go on a run. And I think that that's a fair assessment. I think that he can do that. I think he's there 3 to 5 years. I think Stevie ultimately takes over after him. And I think that's probably the goal in mind, that he would be the coach in waiting to kind of absorb this as he moves forward. And so we'll keep monitoring this. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be really interesting to watch. And it's very pertinent news. We start talking about this. Now, there were some other coaches for the other jobs that were open. And Dan Mullen, I guess, took UNLV Schlegs.
That's
That just
surprising.
broke. Yeah. And so we'll get into that here in a little bit, because there's a lot of coaches that are moving on. But Brian Hartline, Ohio State's esteemed wide receiver coach, native son of Ohio, Buckeye, checks every box that you want. Young, played 8 years in the NFL, great recruiter, good in scheme, unbelievable developer, which leads into his great recruiting. So as we toss this up here, it's only a matter of time where you'd see him being interviewed at places. Now, I don't think Hart was ever going to go take a MAC job. I don't think he'd ever take a coordinator job at a school that wasn't huge, but he interviewed for the West Virginia job. And I thought, okay, this is one of his first head coaching interviews to my knowledge. First this year. There's not a ton of jobs that are coming open this year with it. So I was curious if he would take it. West Virginia Schlegs, I always say it's a little bit like Louisiana. It's a tight-knit group of people. They don't necessarily like outsiders, but I mean this in the most endearing way possible. I mean, Hartline's from Canton, Glen Oak. He's kind of a country dude. He's like half a hillbilly, so he fits in.
Oh, yeah.
He's like perfect for that deal. I mean, he can go listen to Eric Church, drive his boat down there, hang around and party and be outside. I mean, we already know about how great he is at driving the side-by-sides and the four-wheelers. So
amazing.
He's outside. He's an outdoor cat, to say the least. So he would fit in. I was kind of worried and panicked about it because he's such a great recruiter and developer of talent. And that would have been a huge loss for Ohio State Schlegs.
Yeah, I think last year he interviewed for the Cincinnati job, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that sounds right.
A Big 12, right? Another Big 12 school. Though I think that they're going to go after Rich Rod. You just saw Frost go back to UCF, where they've had success. And I think WVU, these type of programs, I don't think with the way coaches' contracts are set up these days, the hardest thing that Hart has for him is that he's never been a head coach. So, but he can recruit, man, and he can develop. Like, that's his edge over anybody else that has been there and done that, especially in this NIL world. And seeing the type of guys that he's brought to Ohio State, that would give him, part of that top five-esque. If they can't land somebody that has more experience, he would be that type of guy over somebody that's been at a group of five school versus somebody that's been at Ohio State that's been able to recruit and develop, because that's what he's best at. Obviously, you and I would both say we wish him nothing but the best and that one day he gets that opportunity. I just think that these schools now in this day and age of everything that we're seeing transpire from NIL, coaches' salaries, staff salaries, all these different things, all of that is taken into consideration now. And people are more likely to go after those that have a track record over, somebody that's new on the block without the experience, though they're really good at certain things. And again, to your point that we said earlier with Bill Belichick, the one thing that you have to be able to do in college football right now is work NIL, work the portal, develop the relationships, and develop the guys. And he's definitely one that has proven that. And I think he would be successful, but I don't know if it's going to be at WVU.
Well, it's not going to be at WVU because last night it came down that WVU is going back to the well. A guy that was coaching there, Schlegs, that recruited me at West Virginia before ultimately making stops at Michigan and then bounced around. He was at Arizona, and now he's at Jacksonville State.
Jackson State,
I believe. And I toss that up there, Pat. Like Rich Rodriguez will be returning to West Virginia, which it fits. He's native to the area. He's already coached there. They've had a lot of success under him.
Yep.
Look at what he's done at Jacksonville State. Been very, very good there. I believe, did they win their conference? I want to say they were playing for their conference championship.
They were.
I can't remember if they.
And he was the OC at Arizona before he took that
the head
job.
Coach in Arizona.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah, he left kind of there unceremoniously. I mean, they had some issues and some different things. There's a lot of guys ultimately do, and he had to ultimately leave. But he's done a great job and kind of got back into the mix and got his name, top of mind and reference Yeah, Jacksonville State. They beat Western Kentucky for the Conference USA Championship, Schlegel. So,
Yep.
fresh off of that. And I think that's a perfect fit. And honestly, Schlegel, when I saw it, I was super relieved that Rich Rod got the job, and I will apologize to Hart because I would love to see him get one. And by the way, note, he interviewed for that Cincinnati job December 1st, 2022, so before that Peach Bowl run that they had. But I was really relieved to see Rich Rod get that because it meant that Brian Hartline was not going to be leaving the Buckeyes and that he would be here at least to stay for another year.
Yep. Totally agree with you, bud. Totally agree with you.
I appreciate that, Schlegel. I appreciate your agreement. Now, this came kind of out of nowhere. I know we're talking a lot of coaches and everything and coach on the job hunt, but there's not that many jobs that were open. I mentioned Dan, Mullenfield, UNLV. There was probably only about 8 jobs that came open this year, and I don't foresee any others except now Jacksonville State's open, and there's going to be obviously the cascading effect of people filling in as guys get bumped up and they
Marshall will be
around.
open because I believe their guy
Hunt left.
He went to Mississippi State, right?
Ohio
will be open.
I think he went to Southern Miss.
Did he?
Yeah, Auburn went from Ohio University, went to Charlotte. Yeah, yep. Because that was the question with Hunt leaving. I was like, why would he go there? And I guess there was a rub, but we'll get into that a little bit here in a minute. But I want to go to Ohio State's offensive coordinator, Schlegel, and Chip Kelly, and him looking around. And it's been rumored, I guess. I haven't had substantiated any of this, and I don't even know if it's true. And I don't like perpetuating things that I'm not even positive about. But what would the loss of Chip Kelly, should he get another job? And I think, and we'll get into all of this, I think, in the next segment, but what would the loss of Chip Kelly, you think, how would that impact this program?
I think it would impact, Coach Day, Ryan Day, the most. And I think Chip coming in, like his first year, again, a little bit there on the recruiting cycle, but later to the game because, our previous OC went to BC, right? So boom, now you're in, and now you get a full year of understanding what it is that you want from an offensive line perspective, how you want to be able to utilize the weapons that you have. What does that mean? And again, there's still a lot of ball to be played. So I think it would impact Ryan the most because the best part about Chip coming here was that, boom, offense. Right. And then we heard, after that Oregon loss, Ryan going into the defensive side of the ball. That's what was so good about Urban was that he was able to we talk about it, Bob, all the time. You can't work in the business and work on the business. Right. So his ability to have coordinators that he trusts allows you to float back and forth so you can go get in the weeds of the different things. One weed that you definitely have to get on is what are we going to do special team wise? If you totally trust the guy that's running the offensive side of the ball, how do we want to recruit those guys? I can have my input. I can have my input on the defensive side of the ball. I can holistically look at what do I want this roster to look like, feel like, act like, play like. Great. I can go get in the weight room and talk to Mick and all the things that they're doing in there. So having that key, somebody that you trust offensively, that's of the same mind but willing to push, right? You want conflict. You want to be able to go have hard conversations because to me, hard conversations, when you can articulate them as to your why and everybody's on the same page, though they might be heated debates, you have the best that comes out of that and you're able to plant the flag and move forward, in my honest opinion. So having somebody there that you trust that's also willing to push back, that's also been a head coach, is critical personally for Ryan. So does that mean it's the end-all be-all for him? Absolutely not. But I think it would be a loss for Ohio State.
It would be a huge loss. And it would be surprising to me. I don't know if it'd be absolutely jarring, but it would be surprising to me to see Chip leave, given especially that he left UCLA.
A head job.
Here. What?
Yeah, exactly. Leaving a head job in the Big Ten to then come here for 1 year to then go to another school, unless he just thought that job at UCLA was a no-win situation and I wanted to get out and go somewhere else. But all the answers, right, as to the why would be, I just want to be about ball, and I feel good about just coaching ball. You know what I'm saying?
Once
you've accumulated, it's like why go somewhere else?
Surprise. And was noted, Pat threw in there that he loves a good head job too, Schlegs, just like you do. We're going to take a quick break. We got a couple of your questions we're going to pop up here before we even get to tailgate talk. Some of your questions coming up next. Welcome back in the Bobby Carpenter Show, as always. And by the way, listen, like, subscribe, comments, questions. We love it all. We're going to get to them. We're going to do a lot today. We'll do some more tomorrow in the show as well to make sure this is coming from Tuesday's show, our show we regularly have with Bill Bender. Do you think, Schlegs, this is from Joe D 4715.
See you, Joe D.
Yeah, of course. And he said, do you think Ryan Day has the QB to open up this offense and stretch the defense? Does he have a QB to play wide open football like he did against Georgia and then against Clemson, I think in 2020, I believe, is when we'd be thinking.
What do you think, Bob? I mean, here's the deal. We saw Will Howard.
Are you asking me the question and then answering it, or are you going to?
Yeah, no, why don't you go ahead? Why don't you lead this one for Joey D?
Well, is Will as gifted a passer as CJ Stroud? No. I don't know many people that are, though. That's why he was Offensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL. That's why, you look at the numbers. He's been top 5 in the NFL in a lot of statistics. Like, he does an unbelievable delivery. Will can throw the ball well. You look at his accuracy rating, Schleg, for this year. Obviously, against Michigan, it wasn't near as good as you wanted it to be.
Right.
It's going to be it's going to be cold that night, and there'll probably be some wind, so it may not be the easiest environment to throw into. But I think he does have all the physical tools, and he has the wideouts on the outside. Now, some of it comes with how you attack it. Do you do some horizontal stuff, then push it vertical? Can you get some play action there? To do play action, you got to be able to run the ball, which is a big key. And then also, so you're going to be able to have the time to be able to do that, because that's the one thing people are like, they can't run it. Because, well, if you can't run it, you have issues with the offensive line, and everyone knows that. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But if you have issues with the offensive line, well, like, those same issues are going to emerge in pass protection. Like, they don't just disappear, and go somewhere. So yeah, that's one of the other things. But I think they have the horses and the hogs to be able to get it done.
I would just say, like, if you look, I mean, again, the guy set the all-time completion percentage, right? 80% over 6 games at Ohio State. The thing that came up in that Michigan game is when it's windy and it's cold and it's kind of nasty, like, you got to be able to go drive the football. Like, those are some things that Josh Allen does really well in the NFL. And you saw that in the Bills game versus the 49ers a couple weeks back. You got to be able to drive the ball. And there's a couple of those throws that were behind guys. I don't know if that's timing. I don't know if that was being shook up on plays. I don't know. But from the body of work over 12 games, you would say 100% he can. But to your point, Bob, you got to be able to run the football effectively. I'm not saying win the rushing battle, but run it effectively to keep the defense honest. And then how are you setting up those deep threats? And let's not kid ourselves, man. As a fan, there's always the break glass. You got a guy, J.J. Smith, who can outrun everybody. Marvin Harrison was the exact same. Throw it up to the guy. Because, again, we've seen in college football, DBs, they get in a rush, right? They get in a hurry. They don't go turn their head, look for the ball, and there's a PI. We had 2 of those in the Michigan game. And that's just a small sample size the entire year, and one that everybody goes back and looks at. But for the body of work that he did throughout the season, the numbers were always on par with that of Dylan Gabriel. Can he get it done? I think he can. But we're going to see on the 21st, and that's why college football is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I do like your thoughts on that. And sometimes, like you said, when you have the best player on the perimeter, sometimes you just got to throw it up to him and try to figure that out. And sometimes they'll make the play, sometimes they won't, but it's not really a 50-50 ball. if it's thrown to a guy who's going to win that thing probably 75% of the time, or you're going to get a PI with it. One of the other ones came from Ralph Peck in the
Ralph.
same show.
Wreck-It Ralph.
Absolutely, Wreck-It Ralph. Love the show, guys. As far as the thought that you can't be punished for losing a championship game is hogwash. You can be rewarded for winning a championship. Yes, there is no way Boise State is the number 3 seed, and no one would have said Clemson is a playoff team before Saturday. So you have the ACC getting 2 teams in, and arguably the best team is out. So you have SMU in because you can't punish them for losing. Sorry, ACC should have been a 1 team in, and SMU, you're out. Blank you. It should have been Clemson. Is the ACC better than the Big 12? I really don't think it is. I think they liked SMU. I think they liked what they did. No one expected them to win. And here's the reality. Like, you start looking at their wins and losses. Bama lost 3 games. Yeah, they have a tougher strength of schedule. They have all these different metrics. And that's going to be the tough thing to start ultimately juggling. Because I had Ross Bjork on my radio show this morning, 97.1 The Fan. You can check that out on YouTube too, our podcast with it. But he was talking where he thinks there'll be some tweaks after this year, and then and maybe if not after this year, you get everything you want. Definitely ultimate in 2 years, because this is really just like a 2-year deal. So what they can change, he thinks they will try to, and then after that, there'll be an overhaul and maybe probably a new and improved, if you will, format for that 2026 situation.
What do you say that they'll be able to change in 25?
Well, they're looking at maybe some of the reseeding and maybe some of the buy stuff and the way that that's going to work. Like, he didn't say that it was going to happen. He said that they were going to look at it and see, because there's some of the stuff that there is some ambiguity maybe and some gray in this, and if they can get people to agree to certain things, then maybe they'll get it done.
I mean, if you go look, Joe Klein, I think, put it out there, resumes of 5 through 8, right? And I think this is what Wreck-It Ralph is looking at, right? So Texas, they're 11-2, lost their championship game, had an extra game to do that, right? They were 11-1 going in, but they're 0-2 versus top 25 matchups. Penn State, 1-2, lost the head-to-head to Ohio State at home. Notre Dame, 11-1, 1-0 versus top 5, strength of schedule 59, but they only lost 1 game. Ohio State, 10-2, but they're 2-1 versus top 25 matchups, right? So that 1 loss was to Oregon by 1 on the road, but they also lost to Michigan. And that's kind of where I go back and forth on this, right? Like, the regular season still matters. And that's what everybody struggles with, right? Especially when you look at Penn State and you're like, is Penn State better than Ohio State? I would say no. But they were 11-1 at the end of the year. If Ohio State just wins that game versus Michigan, which they should have won, they're in the title game. They're probably the 5th seed, should they have lost that game, and we wouldn't be having this discussion. So, again, this is what happens, right? There's more dialogue. There's more convo. Before it was 4 teams. It's like, who is 5 and 6? Now, because it's 12, it's like, who's going to be in there? And then really, when you look at the Alabama, the thing that stuck Alabama the hardest was the 24-3 loss in Norman.
Yeah.
That was it, guys. Like if that game was closer, right? Or they barely if they win that game, there's not even a discussion. They're in, SMU's out. Like, that's the point. You're not going to have a 2-loss, Alabama sitting on the sidelines in the CFP. But it was that 24-3 loss. Honestly, if you're going to put a team in there and a 3-loss team, the hottest team in the country was South Carolina. Like, they're the ones that should go.
Yeah, coming up next, I believe we've got our headlines. And after that, we'll have our tailgate talked about. It's about Real Truck right here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like... I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink garage beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage beer, beer flavored beer. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now with the portal. We'll talk about some of the Ohio State players that are in there. I mean, Devin Brown, Gabe Powers, and we'll get into that. But Kenny Dillingham, the head coach at Arizona State, Schlegel, had a unique take on how the portal situation should work, how it's going to work for Arizona State. And some of this is on the player, some of this is on the coach. It's on the relationship between them of how it's going to proceed going forward. And believe me, people are like, well, why doesn't everybody do stuff like this? I'm like, sometimes it's, there's the players got to want to, they got to have a desire to stick around. But Kenny Dillingham of Arizona State, we can toss that up, Pat, talks about, what his thoughts are about how they're going to manage the portal, because they got the buy and they've got the CFP run.
For our guys that are going in the portal, we've met with most of our guys that are going in. Our guys have the opportunity to stay on our football team. Like, they're like, well, we'll go in at the end. I go, no, that's not fair to you to go in after our run is over. Like, I want you to have the best opportunity to find a spot. You can go in right now, day one, we'll help you find a spot and stay on our football team if you want to stay on our football team, and let's go on this ride together the rest of the way. But I didn't want those guys to feel like they had to wait to go in because they wanted an opportunity to have a bigger role for a program until after the CFP. I think that would have hurt their chances. So I made it very clear to the guys that you can stay on the team as long as you do what you're supposed to do, just like you're on the team. Go to meetings, show up, be 5 minutes early, check in, weigh in, go to workouts. Even if you go in the portal here, that doesn't affect me at all.
I would just say this. So here's what he talks about, guys. He talks about the fact that we're going, and we've alluded to this multiple times in our shows. Basically, hey, man, you've been a critical part of this run. Stay, develop. If you decide to go, that's great. If you decide to stay, that's great, right? You're as much a part of this, whether you're here or you're not. And that was really the point that he was making to his players.
Well,
it's at their discretion.
And that's really good. And you talk about the relationship right there. And with that, Ohio State's got some guys in the portal. We'll get into that next here in Tailgate Talk.
Get the most out of work, life, and all your outdoor adventures with top-selling upgrades for your truck. Guaranteed fit, free shipping, easy install, expert support, and thousands of dealers just a click away. Bring your truck to life. Real Truck. Upgrade today and save between $50 and $400 on select Real Truck products. Visit realtruck.com/specials.
All right, welcome into Tailgate Talk, brought to you by our friends at Real Truck. Listen, Cyber Week is over, but it's okay. They still got great deals. Go to realtruck.com for your Jeep, truck, Bronco, outfit it all, inside, outside. They've got you loaded up. And here's the best part. You go there, you spend $100. I keep telling you about it. Use promo code Bobby at checkout. You're going to get a free Real Truck hat. Schlegel has finally got it on. It's sat on my porch. And they're durable because it sat outside for a week while I was waiting for Schlegel to come get it. Then I told him I was going to practice. He came over to my house and asked where I was. Buckeyes, realtruck.com, $100, promo code Bobby, get your free hat. Now, Kenny Dillingham talked about some of the guys in the portal. You can still play because you can come back on the roster if your coach says it's good, but you got to have an honest dialogue and you got to be a dude and show up and do your dude things. Devin Brown announced he's getting in the portal. I think people expected that. You look at Julian Sayin here. You got St. Clair coming on. You've got Lincoln Keenholz still here. Aaron Nolan, I think one of those two guys will get in the portal before it's all said and done. But maybe they'll compete throughout the spring. We'll see ultimately what happens with that. But with Devin Brown getting this, we can throw that up there, Pat. He's getting in. And the question was, like, who will be the backup quarterback? Devin Brown is going to stay on, Schlegel. And we only got about a minute left in this. He's going to stay on and be a part of it. Gabe Powers, I think, is getting the portal. I think he's going to go to Northwestern. I think he's going to be gone. But it's going to be at the discretion of the players and coaches of how that ultimately works.
Yeah, what he said was about them getting in the portal early was the most vital part of that, because coaches can only grab who's in the portal. So go in right now to find
Yeah.
the best fit. Like, that's the point. I just want
Get your
everybody to know
spot.
what.
You got to get your
why-
spot.
Go get your spot. And then here, but my biggest concern is now you decided to go there, but what happens if you stay on and you blow a knee out during practice, or you have a soft tissue injury, or you have, an ace, Achilles, right? Like something like that. Well, then you're no good to them. Like, that's kind of the problem with all of this not being regulated, right? And now it's kind of risk reward, what I want to be able to do for my career moving forward that these kids have to do. Whereas in the league, it's very cut and dry. Like, that's my entire problem with it.
Absolutely. And I get it. It's tough because if you do have that injury, but I think these guys, like, they have that, obviously, that connection to their team, the connection to their program. They want to stay, they want to battle, they want to fight. All right, that's it for Tailgate Talk, brought to you by our friends over at Real Truck. Coming up next, Schlegel is going to wrap up this Thursday show with his thoughts. I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer. All right, Schlegel, you're on the clock. You got about 40 seconds.
40 seconds. Hey, man, you got some NFL mock drafts going out there. And here's the deal. You got some of our guys that are potentially first-round guys, but film still matters, man. And it's good on good time. So regardless of where the Buckeyes are in this, that's why it's still vital that you go out there. Every time you go out, you got to show out because you're putting that tape on. And NFL teams want to see good on good. That's what the college football playoff is. Excited for these guys, but I'm more excited to see what happens this college football playoff versus Tennessee, December 21st in the shoe. Can't wait.
Well, it's going to be a week from Saturday, Schlegs, 8 o'clock at night. It's going to be great. We're going to have a big show for you tomorrow. We got Conor O'Gara from Saturdays down south. Break down a little bit of this from the SEC side. Look at some of the other games. All that is going to be coming to you at 12:30 on Friday. Stay locked in on the Bobby Carpenter Show.